What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Tales of the Pod podcast. My name's Michaela. I'm your host.
And I'm your co-host, Nick. How's it going, guys?
And this week, viewer beware, you're in for a scare.
That's clever. I like that.
We are going to be talking about the only Goosebumps.
Goosebumps.
The iconic book, TV, movie, whole universe that R.L. Stein created. And I personally love Goosebumps. It definitely made me the person I am. My mom made me read books when I was younger, which I'm thankful for now, but I would only read Goosebumps.
Yeah.
So I would go to the library every week and get a new Goosebumps book.
Because they were short enough, and they were like, the covers what sold me, because it was always something creepy, and they were just, they were just awesome.
So creative. Like, yeah,
I know.
When I was younger, I remember, I'm like, when I grow up, I want to marry R.L. Stein. And then I saw a picture of him, and I was like, okay, maybe not. But I always thought he was just the coolest. And I still do. Like, I found his Instagram the other night, and I was stalking it.
Yeah, we were looking through the Instagram.
He's just the coolest dude. I love him.
82 years old?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this franchise basically went from 1992 to 1997, and there was 62 books published. And I would say 80% of the books were made into TV shows.
Yeah, there was something...
I know some were. Some were left out.
Yeah, I feel like some of them were. There was a total of 74 episodes, if I do recall, made.
It spawned into 2 television series, video games, comics, and feature films, which the feature film with Jack Black, the first one's actually pretty good. I know it's made for kids, but it was actually pretty good.
Yeah, I liked it, yeah.
I like that a lot.
And then the new I don't know, I guess it would be a revival, but the new style or whatever of Goosebumps with Justin Long, that one was actually pretty good.
That was, I forgot about that. That was really good. That was
like
a Hulu. It was
original.
a Hulu exclusive.
Yeah.
And R.L. Stein also did the Fear Street series, which is really good as well.
Yes, I've not read any of those books.
I saw the TV on Netflix. We watched it.
Yeah, we watched the 3 movies that came out, I don't know, a couple years ago, based off those short stories, I guess. I wouldn't call them novels.
And this is actually the second best-selling book series besides Harry Potter, which is huge.
Oh, yeah, that's
absolutely huge.
Yeah.
And I looked it up because if you watch the movie, Jack Black plays R.L. Stein, and he makes a joke like, I sold way more books than Stephen King, but no one wants to talk about that. And I looked it up, and they're pretty close. R.L. Stein sold about 400 million, and Stephen King sold 350 million. So
50 million books. So R.L. Stein wins. That's insane.
R.L. Stein wins. And that's what happens when you make spooky books for kids. And he's basically the Stephen King for children and adolescents.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, because, a lot of the stuff he writes is just...
It's definitely for kids.
Well, it is like horror, It's for kids, yeah, obviously, but it's horror for children.
Yeah, and I definitely appreciate how the kids are always, like, the heroes in this. Like, they always find out what's wrong. Parents could care less. They're not really anywhere to be found.
Yeah.
And I love it. The kids are just the smart ones in this. They take the initiative. They fight the monster. They do whatever they have to do. And some of these, for being a kid's thing, like, were creepy.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I remember watching them. Man. Some of them scared me.
Yeah, they're freaky. Yeah, they were freaky. And there's just something, too, about, like, the whole vibe that they give off. I don't know, just being in the 90s like that. Like, obviously, we weren't watching these, like, during that time because we were...
Yeah, we were infants.
Yeah, we were infants.
Yet. Yeah.
And,
well, 92
but I'm just thinking, like, my cousin, like, because my cousins, they would have been, like, 10, 11 years old at the time when these were, like, on TV back in, like, 1996, you know? So that's pretty cool to, like...
That's so cool.
Think of and just, like, I remember asking them when I was, like, into these, like, when I was, like, 11 or 12 years old, and they were like, oh, yeah, I remember that. Oh, my God, that was so crazy,
Yeah, R.L. Stein is a king, for sure. He is just such an icon in the horror community. I think starting people off young with scary stuff is just... the best way to make a person the best they can be.
I definitely agree.
I wouldn't have traded my childhood growing up with Goosebumps for anything else. I love R.L. Stein. It's so creative.
Yes, I think he is very, very creative. So Goosebumps is a children's anthology horror television series, obviously, for all of you who don't know that. It's based off R.L. Stein's best-selling book series of the same name. It basically involves, like Michaela said, it's like children or adolescents, sometimes like preteen or teenagers, in like weird, bizarre situations. Not like always like ghosts or zombie. It's always like something different. It's not. Yeah. I mean, there's a few obviously that are like about ghosts and stuff like that, because I mean that's pretty.
Some of them are different, like timelines. Like the timeline gets kind of messed up.
Yeah.
Being invisible, like getting powers.
Yeah, it's very like kind of
anything supernatural.
Yeah, macabre, like occulty. Yeah, anything supernatural, I guess, would be a good way to put
anything
it.
in like the paranormal, supernatural is fair game, I would say. But some of these are just so out of pocket.
Yeah.
Like I was saying before, so creative.
And it starts, the TV series began in 1995 and ran to, I believe, 1998. And 74 episodes were made based off the books. And the executive producers were Deborah Forte, and the producer was Stephen S. Levitan?
Levitan, maybe? Yeah, Levitan.
Levitan, I think is how you say it. And all these were filmed in Toronto, Canada, so shout out to the Canadian people.
Shout out to the Canadians. Yeah, one thing I want to, I thought was interesting too, we still rewatch the show at least probably once a week.
I love watching it.
And watching them when I'm older, one thing I picked up on is there's always a brother and sister, and there's always an older sister and a younger brother.
Yes.
And they're always finding out something, and the parents could care less, or they don't believe them, or they're nowhere to be seen, or whatever. So I was interested, so I looked it up to see if R.L. Stein maybe had an older sister, and that's where the dynamic came from, but I couldn't find anything about him having siblings.
Yeah,
so,
I think basically, all of them, it's like that.
Pretty much every single one, yeah.
I can think of a few where it's just a single child.
I think maybe just to represent all siblings, like boys and girls.
Yeah.
And appeal to all kids.
Yeah, generally it is like an older sister that's,
Yeah. So essentially, for this episode, we are going to break down our top 5 favorite Goosebumps, starting with our number 5 and working our way down.
Yes, that's how we do
including the book and the movie. So when we talk about one, we're probably going to talk about the episode more, because I haven't read the books in years.
Yeah, I haven't.
They're essentially the same.
It's been like a good 20 years since I've read the books.
Do you want to talk about your number 5 first?
Yeah, so my number 5, I picked the Piano Lessons Can Be Murder episode, so... this one's pretty, kind of funny, too, because, again, these shows are meant for kids, so it's not, going to be, terrifyingly scary to, make the kid not, sleep, but it is going to be a little freaky and creepy, so basically this episode is based off the same book by the same title and everything. It's about this kid named Jerry. They move into this new house, him and his family, and there's, this old piano that's there at the house, so... He kind of takes an interest in it, his mom does too, and signs him up for piano lessons. But there's a ghost that's haunting this piano, and is warning him don't go to the piano school because that's how I died, basically.
Mm-hmm. I remember
this book. And then he goes to the piano school, and there's this creepy, crazy dude. He kind of looks like Rip Taylor in a way. I don't know if any of you guys know who Rip Taylor is, but he looks like Rip Taylor, and very eccentric, very weird guy. And I guess basically he would keep the kids there to play music for him for eternity, and he would trap their soul there and everything like that. And that's basically the gist of the episode. It's very funny. Just the guy, I mean, I should show you guys a picture of him, but yeah, he looks kind of almost like a wizard, and, of course the effects aren't really that great, the ghosts are,
Oh yeah, you have to have some, I guess, patience with these episodes.
Yeah, I guess...
They're old.
They're old, they're from the 90s, you know, it's a TV show, it's not...
It's for kids.
Yeah, it's for kids, exactly.
But still iconic.
Yeah. It stars Ben Cook as the little boy Jerry, Barclay Hope, who plays the piano instructor, and then Carolyn Scott is the mom of Jerry. And that's basically all I got really to say about it. It's definitely one of my favorite. I guess the whole idea of it's kind of unique. This guy traps these kids there and forces them to play music for him for eternity and stuff like that.
I remember this book cover so well because it's literally just a pair of hands on the piano.
Yeah.
It's so creepy.
But then in the episode 2, I forgot to mention this at the end, the ghosts rebel, and they end up making this guy play music for him for the rest of eternity, basically.
Period.
So it's pretty, kind of like poetic justice, I suppose.
Yeah. Okay, so for my number 5, I picked the iconic episode, Stay Out of the Basement, which this is I had this one on VHS, I remember. But basically, brother and sister, and their dad is a scientist, and he starts acting really weird. There's a time where dad gets cut and like this green fluid comes out of him.
Yeah.
He's eating like Miracle Grow for breakfast.
Yeah.
Like this like plant looking stuff. And he keeps telling them, stay out of the basement. I'm doing my experiments down there because he's a scientist.
Sure.
And it turns out that this really wasn't their dad. Their real dad had done some experiments and created like a plant clone of himself.
Yeah.
So this other dad was just a plant impersonating their dad trying to take over.
Right.
So at the end, there's this like whole phase off where the plant is like, I'm your dad. And the dad's like, no, I'm your dad.
Yeah, it's like that whole like, who do you believe?
Yes, who do you believe? And the daughter takes a knife and slices the one, I guess dad's hand, and bright red blood comes out. So she's like, okay, you're my dad. And then they kill the plant dad.
Yeah.
But this is just so crazy. All the like the things that lead up to it, because he's acting so weird. He's like, stay out of the basement.
Yeah, it's very. Did you go in the basement?
Did you go in the basement?
Like, he's very intense about
very
not going
intense.
into the basement.
And they throw like a frisbee at one point, and it lands by the basement window, and one of the plants starts attacking the brother and like wrapping around him like a vine and holding onto him tight. And he's like, that plant just attacked me. And the dad, all he says, the plant dad, all he says is like, stay out of the basement, stay away from everything. I'm doing experiments down there. Like, it's dangerous, whatever.
Yeah.
And, the mom's gone, of course. She's on vacation, not knowing her husband was replaced by a plant.
She's there visiting her sick sister.
Yes,
That's what happened. Yeah.
Not knowing that her husband was, taken by a plant.
Yeah. It's kind of out there, but it's like, it's very kind of, these like episodes are very reminiscent of like Twilight Zone and Night Gallery kind of style. They're very like abstract and out there, like nothing that could ever really happen in reality, you know. But,
and they have even like another doctor come over at one point and they're arguing in the basement, which we don't really hear much of, but you can only assume that the other doctor is probably like, what the hell are you doing down here? Like, these plants are probably not legal here, they're dangerous or whatever.
Exactly.
And it's definitely interesting because it's not, it's definitely far-fetched, but
it's a cool idea. I like it.
It's a scary thing as a kid, not knowing
what
your parents are doing.
I think that's concept. Like the whole thing is like, why can't I go into that room? That's like that whole thing.
When parents tell you,
don't go in my bedroom or, stay out of there. It's like, well, why? In a kid, you're going to be curious and want to know why. But in this case, it's because your dad's a
plant.
Man plant.
They hear all these creepy noises coming out of there. The plants are like crying. Remember that? The plants were like making noises and crying.
It's super weird.
Great episode though.
I know, I like that one a lot. That was a 2-part one too, I'm pretty sure.
That was a 2-part,
So they did this thing, like, there was, like, feature episodes, and I don't know how many there are, but you talk about a couple, so I'll let you kind of elaborate a little bit more on that.
Yeah, a couple of mine are, basically, I think when something's that aired on TV, you can only cut it up in, like, 30-minute intervals or sections. Yes. So there are some episodes that are 2 parts, and it's so funny when they end on such a dramatic note, and the music's like, dun-dun.
Yeah.
And then it cuts, and then it rolls right to the next section.
Yes, but it doesn't, like, start out like a new story the next episode.
No, it starts with, like, the last
or the
scene,
next day, or something like that. It's
just a continuation Which I can't imagine watching that back in the day when it was actually on cable, being so annoyed, being like, where's the second part? Find out what happens.
What's happening? Yeah. Alright, so for my number 2, I picked The Cuckoo Clock of Doom. And this one's definitely, like, very, like, I guess Twilight Zone kind of inspired. At least to me, that's what it reminded me of. It basically is about this kid. Excuse me. This kid's name is Michael. His dad brings home a old, like, grandfather clock, but it's a cuckoo clock. It has the bird that comes out and goes.
I find those so annoying. I can't believe people buy those.
It's a piece of history and stuff. Yeah. Like, I think his dad was more a collector of like history and stuff. I don't think he was like, if we were to put this in like the bedroom,
Yeah.
So he buys this clock, and Michael's little sister Tara is kind of like a pest. She's like way younger than him, like I think only like 5. Michael's probably about like 11 or 12, and she just annoys the crap out of Michael, and at his birthday party, Tara does this prank on him where Michael falls in the cake. He gets cake all over his face. Everybody's laughing at him like, ha, 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 ha. So he gets this idea in his head that he's going to turn back the cuckoo clock, and what happens is he ends up stuck in this time loop where he's, he just thought like, I'd like to change back time and get even with Tara or something like that, but it ends up working.
Yep.
And then he can't get out of that timeline. And actually, he goes all the way back. He keeps rewinding it, and he ends up becoming a child. again, he's like a baby.
Do you remember, I don't remember this one very well.
You don't remember that? Yeah, it's pretty out there, and it's actually kind of cool because it's every time he rewinds the clock, it's like a whole year goes away. So essentially, he starts like he ends up back in like a crib, but he's still in his mind like you. In the show, he's in like the mindset. He's still 12 years old. He's and he's like, oh, Mom, Dad, like help, and they're like, oh, who's a cute little baby, just like, and he's like, Mom, Dad, no, it's
how scary to be trapped as a baby, and you're trying to say, help me, and all it comes out is just cries. Yeah, and they're like, oh, he's hungry, or he needs to be changed.
Exactly. So it's pretty. And I believe that's how it ends too. I haven't seen this one in a hot minute, so I believe that's how it ends. He's like stuck as a child. So it's not
I haven't seen that one in a minute. We should rewatch it.
A bright happy ending or anything like that.
Which a lot of them are. A lot of them are like kind of sad endings.
Or like very like ambiguous and stuff. Yeah, they're not really.
For being a kid show.
Yeah, it was like holy crap, that's creepy. But yeah, it's a cool episode because it has to do with like time dilation and stuff like that. It's very, very cool in my opinion. I really enjoyed that one, and the acting's great too. It's
the acting in all these is
the parents are like your picture perfect, like mom and dad. That like hey Sporto, and like
hey bud,
let's go play ball in the backyard. Like typical suburban like parents, or at least the stereotype, I guess. But it's just it's great.
Yeah, the acting in these episodes is definitely interesting. Which, I mean, it's kids. Like, it's kids doing it. So, I think they act, as scared as they can be, essentially.
Sure. All right, what you got for your number... I said number 2. I meant number 4. For your number 4.
So, for my number 4, I picked The Werewolf of Fever Swamp.
That's another good one.
Which this is a good one. I had this one on VHS as well. But essentially, this family, of course, brother and sister. The brother's name is, I think, Grody or Brody? Grady.
Grady, that's it, yeah.
They moved to a swamp in Florida. The parents have a farm, I think, something like that. And they hear howling at night. Some of their animals start to get eaten. And at first they're like, okay, is it the dog? Because they have a dog. And they rule out that it's a dog. And then they find out that there's a wolf prowling around because it ends up eating one of their deer.
Yeah, they have deer. They're like scientists, right? The parents.
Yeah, they're scientists or something.
With deer.
Yeah, I think they did do experiments. Deer were all in like a little pen, but at night they were being like mutilated, and then they'd hear howling.
Sure.
And Grady makes a friend with Will. He's like a neighborhood kid, as much as a neighborhood this can be. This is a pretty desolate swamp in the middle of Florida.
Yeah.
And there's this hermit that lives in the woods, and he's very creepy as well. So they have all these factors put together. And it turns out one night that Grady and Will sneak out into the woods because they're like, we need to see this wolf, like what's happening. And they see this hermit basically transform into a werewolf.
Turning into the werewolf, yeah.
And I will say the effects for this are pretty well done. Like the
transformation was pretty cool. Yeah. I'd be like, especially for being a kid to watch that was probably like, whoa.
And I don't remember if it was that night or the next night. I think it was maybe the next night, and he ran home, tried to tell his parents and his sister, and they're like, you're crazy.
Yeah.
Whatever, we're going to ignore you.
Mm-hmm.
And so the next night they go back out, and his friend Will gets bit by this hermit that's a vampire, or not a vampire, a werewolf.
Yes.
He gets bit by him, and he tells Grady, go, save yourself, go. And then, this is what I mean by, like, the devastating endings, is the next night it follows up, and it ends with Will, the little kid that got bit, and he's, like, howling and turning into a werewolf.
Yeah, he's turning into the werewolf, yeah.
And his friend Grady is watching him like, oh my god, like, now you're a werewolf?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Yeah, so I guess they all don't end, like, happily like that.
They don't, and I think it preys on the fear of, like, moving to a new place because your parents made you to when you're a little kid and you don't really have any control over anything.
Exactly.
And you're trying to say, something's happening, I need help, and no one listens to you.
Right, exactly.
But yeah, definitely creepy. I like that one a lot because it brings in a little bit of like folklore about the werewolf. Like there's just a random hermit living in the swamp, but of course he's a werewolf.
Yeah, exactly. And it's cool like how they bring in like the traditional kind of horror sense too. Just with like, the werewolf and everything.
And I think having a series like this, you have to probably pay homage to the different horror icons like that, and werewolves definitely one of them.
Yeah, definitely. And that folklore with werewolf and everything.
But like biting a kid and making the kid the werewolf at the end is savage.
I know, it's pretty crazy. Alright, so for my number 3, I picked The Headless Ghost. So this one, I did not read the book. I'd only seen the episode, but it's about these two people, boy and a girl, Dwayne and Stephanie. They're attending this tour of this this house called Hill House. It's like a historical thing and everything.
It's always
like
called
that.
Hill House. Every spooky house.
Yeah, and it's of course it's haunted. And I'm sorry, I'm just brain farting here. So they're like pulling pranks on the people that are touring it and stuff. They're like trying to make it look like it's haunted and everything, like making it really haunted. But then they are getting stuck in there, and there actually is a ghost in there, and it's of a little boy who's missing his head. And they're like basically they're trying to first they're terrified, and then they're like trying to find the head for the ghost.
How nice.
So yeah, they end up finding. I don't think they end up finding the head for that ghost, but it's kind of cool because it's set like they give a little backstory to this episode too, like because obviously this ghost is like haunting this house that is over 100 years. So they in the beginning they give you like the backstory of how the ghost lost his head basically, and I guess he was like being a bad kid and they cut off his head. From what I remember, but I could be wrong. But yeah, it's pretty comical in that kind of sense. But
yeah, I would say
it's cool how they give you kind of like a little backstory about the ghost, and then it sets into like modern day or present day, I should say, and then it takes off from there. The story starts again.
For kids too.
Yeah, I know. It's creepy too because it's like you can hear like the kid crying and stuff like that too, and like, "Where's my head? Where's my head?" And
where's my head?
Yeah, it's kind of like that in House on Haunted Hill in the movie where it's like when Watson Pritchett's saying he's like because there's two severed heads floating around the house. He's like you can hear them together at night sometimes. They whisper to each other and then they cry. That's what it's like. They're like trying to find their body.
Poor little heads.
Yeah, that's what it kind of reminded me of with that. But yeah, that's my number 3. I would like to read the book on this one because I feel like the book would be interesting to read.
I know, that's the thing is these books are so hard to find nowadays. Like, some of them are easily accessible, but a lot of them aren't. A lot of them are hard to find. Yes. And I would like to reread them now that I'm older, especially because they're so little. Like, I could kill that in like a day,
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, they're like, they're only like, I think, not even 100 pages.
Yeah.
Some of them, like 80, 90,
very kid
90
friendly
pages.
Okay, so for my number 3, I picked The Scarecrow Walks at Midnight. Which I remember having this book. I thought the cover was so cool because it's literally just a creepy looking scarecrow with almost like a jack-o'-lantern for a head.
Yes.
But same kind of thing, a brother and sister, they go to stay with their grandparents for like a week or whatever. And the grandparents live on a farm in the middle of nowhere, and they have a, I guess what would he be called? Like someone that works on the farm? Or like
a farmhand.
A farmhand.
Yeah.
He works on the farm as well, and things start to get kind of weird. Like, the grandma, it's so funny, this is what I mean by, like, it's so cheesy, is the grandma usually makes chocolate chip pancakes in the morning, and she gives them cornflakes, and they're like, oh, something's wrong.
Yeah, grandma's
something's
not making chocolate chip pancakes, what's going on?
And it's weird, they're kind of looking at their farmhand, his name is Stanley, and they're kind of looking at him, and he's like, well, I like cornflakes, and it's very cheesy, like, this episode's very cheesy, I will say.
Yeah.
Something else happens too. Oh, they ask their grandpa to tell him. They're like, oh, tell us a story, tell us jokes. And he's just like looking at Stanley for permission. And then he's like, no, I can't tell jokes anymore.
Yeah.
So you're like, what is going on here?
Yeah, like, why is Stanley
running shit?
Yeah.
And
he's kind of slow.
Yes.
Too. He's kind of not like well educated. And
no. What was I going to say? So then there's some creepy scenes of them in the cornfield, right? And there's 3 scarecrows lined up. And they start to have, like, the typical scary movie where it's like, oh, I swear that scarecrow just moved, or, oh, it fell on top of me, or, oh, somebody chases, like, there's this neighborhood kid, and he chases them around with a scarecrow trying to scare them.
Yeah.
And it's so cheesy. He's like, city kids don't belong here.
Yeah, don't belong in the country.
But it turns out that the farmhand Stanley was doing some like witchcraft shit, and he made these scarecrows come to life.
Yeah, he like found like a book of like ancient spells,
and he just starts spewing shit.
Where do you find the book?
Yeah,
You're
in the middle of a desolate
farm. Canada,
And he made these scarecrows come to life, and every single night they basically attack the kids, they attack the grandparents.
Yes,
and Stanley's the only one that knows how to put them to sleep, supposedly, so that's why he was kind of catering to the grandparents. That's why there was no chocolate chip pancakes.
Right.
So, it's cheesy, but I think it's definitely well done. I don't know, something about scarecrows I think are creepy.
Yeah,
in the middle of a field like that.
They are creepy. I remember I don't know. There's like been a few movies done about scarecrows coming back to life. I mean, they're not the best movies, but I feel like that could be really used as like a good.
Yeah, like Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. They did that, where the one kid became the scarecrow.
Became the scarecrow.
And something about that, I just think being in the middle of nowhere and like it's like basically a statue thing, just looking at you and coming alive. I think that's a very cool concept.
I know, it is kind of creepy. And they are creepy too. I mean, they always are like, it reminds me of Jeepers Creepers, and I think it's the second one where he's like hanging on the scarecrow thing, and his head picks up like that.
Like, just imagine like being in a field all by yourself and they just look up at
you,
what do you
or
do?
Like kick you when you walk by or something. Yeah, no, thank you. All right, so for my number 2, I picked Revenge of the Lawn Gnomes. So
that's
this one,
such a good one.
This is because this is like your typical like mom and dad, I swear I did not do it.
Yeah,
like they do not believe you. So it's sorry, I still got a bit of a cough from being sick.
You picked some good ones.
What's that?
I said you picked some good ones.
Yeah, so this follows Joe and Mindy, and they live next door to this guy. I forget the guy's name, but he's basically like I think he's like a retired like colonel or something like that. Okay. I think they call him the colonel. And they basically the colonel's got like this very like perfect garden, like backyard, I guess. It's not really even a garden, it's like his backyard. Like everything's like perfectly manicured, perfectly well kept, and he's like super proud of it. And I got like the Home and Garden magazine coming through basically.
Yeah.
So Joe and Mindy's parents, they are also going to be part of this like Home and Garden thing, but they got these lawn gnomes that they found, like basically like at a yard sale or whatever like that.
And they're so funny looking.
Yeah, and they're like your typical lawn gnomes, but they're a little bigger. They're not like the miniature little guys that you normally would see, but they're bigger. And so they have those like, in their garden. They're like preparing for the Home and Garden showing and everything like that too. But at night, they come alive and they cause mayhem. So it's like, I think that has a lot to do with like the folklore behind gnomes too, is like they do come to life at night and everything.
Gnomes and like fairies and that kind of
it's like kind of like Irish, like Northern European folklore. So they come to life at night, and what they do is they go over to the colonel's garden and they like trash it, and obviously, the colonel thinks it's the 2 kids, trashing the garden. And so he's like calling the parents over, and they're like, I cannot believe you did this to his, and they're like, no, it wasn't us. And like the kids know it's the gnomes and everything like that. And then eventually, they're trying to catch the gnomes on film. They finally catch it on film, and but something happens. I can't remember exactly what happens, if they're able to show their parents or not.
I think it gets all like distorted. The film gets distorted or something.
They were able to catch it on film, but something happens with the film. But ultimately, what ends up happening is the colonel comes outside and sees them doing it, and they like attack him and turn him into a gnome.
Yeah, and that's what they are. Is they're just gnomes that have taken other people.
Yeah, and then like they're in his garden now.
Yes, so I remember that now.
It's kind of poetic justice too, and this colonel's obviously like just a cranky old man that's super, mean to the kids and everything, and he's like, telling them all this bull crap and everything, and so it's kind of poetic justice in that way too, at least in the sense of a little kid, I guess. Like, haha, old man, you got what came to you.
That
so definitely funny. Like one of my favorite ones for sure.
I forgot about that one. So for my number 2, I picked A Night in Terror Tower, which, quick story about this one, I had this one on VHS as well, and this one scared me this was the only one that scared me. This one scared me so much that my mom took the VHS away and was like, no, you can't watch this anymore, because I wouldn't sleep at night.
Aww.
And I wanted to keep watching it because nothing in my childhood really scared me. Like, I was scared of spiders, but like no movie or anything ever really scared me. And like to this day, nothing really scares me.
Sure.
And I didn't want to be scared, so I just wanted to keep watching it so I would be desensitized and not be scared anymore. So finally, I like begged my mom, like, look, give me the VHS back. Like, I want to watch it. And then I rewatched it, and finally, I wasn't scared anymore.
See?
And honestly, this is scary for kids. Like, this episode was wild.
Yeah, this one, and that's definitely one of my favorite ones for sure.
This is like one I think that still holds up to this day. I don't think it's cheesy at all. I think it holds up very well.
Yes.
It's about Sue and her younger brother Ed. Well, Eddie.
Eddie, yeah.
They're American, but they're tourists in London, and they go to tour Terror Tower. And they're joining a tour on the castle, And it gets weird. They start getting chased around by, like, this hooded figure, and I don't know what they're called, that used to, like, guard the castle. I don't know, like, we're talking, like, medieval times.
Yeah.
Like, old shit.
Yeah, and it's a museum, the Terror Tower. Yep, so there's, like, wax figures and stuff like that all around there and everything.
It's very creepy, and then they get, like, chased around by one of the... They think it's a wax figure, but it ends up not being. Like a
reenactor, because there's reenactors, too, that are there, too.
They get chased around by one, and they get kind of separated from the tour group a couple of times, and then at the end, they get separated from the tour group for good, and they find their way back to the hotel room, and, you know, they get an own taxi ride on their own. They get back to the hotel room, and they're like, okay, well, we need our key to get into our room. And they're like, okay, what's your last name? And the sister, Sue, looks at her brother and was like, Eddie, what's our last name?
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't know. Why can't I think of our last name? And they just can't think of anything.
Right.
And they're like, yeah, we have no one here. Like, no one here said they lost their kids. No one here anything. And they basically just start to forget everything.
Yes.
So then they get, like, kidnapped by this like figure again, brought back to Terror Tower, and the plot twist turn of the century, they get woken up by this man who claims to be a servant, and he's dressed in, like, medieval clothing, and he says that they are Prince and Princess of York, Edward and Susanna.
Yeah.
So basically, which I don't even know how to put this into words, basically during medieval times, these two were alive, and their parents were murdered in an attempt to take over the royal family.
Yeah, basically make a coup.
Yeah. And be in power, because they were part of royalty. And one of their servants used these, like, magic rocks to send them to a different timeline.
Yeah, very, like, Twilight Zone-y again.
Very Twilight Zone. So then they're sent back to medieval times, and they're dressed, you know, in, like, prince and princess clothing. They're talking different.
Yeah, they have, like, the traditional English accent.
Traditional English. And they end up escaping, and they get sent back to real life at this point. But you can tell, too, because when they go to Terror Tower, they see this, like, ghost-like figure, and it's like, no, don't go in here, don't go in here.
When they're like, I think that's how it starts out when they first get there, is, like, Eddie sees, like, that guy that ends up being that sorcerer. And he's like, no, go back, you know, and he's, like, yelling at him. He's like, Stu, I just think I saw a ghost.
Yep. And, they get sent back. They luckily get sent back to present day. But watching this was just so scary.
Yeah.
Like, not only the guard chasing them around the castle, but then trying to go back to the hotel and you can't even remember your name.
Yeah, they, like, start losing, like...
They start losing memory.
Yeah, because it's, like, basically what I took away from it was, like, that guy that was, like, the sorcerer, like, gave them, like, a fake life in the future.
Yes.
Like, gave them, like, a fake last name and stuff like that, but I don't know why they just couldn't remember it. You know,
maybe it was just, like, starting to fade away. I don't know. You definitely have to watch it.
Yes, yeah, it's a very interesting episode. That was another, like, two-parter.
Yeah, I guess the guy that was chasing them is Lord High Executioner of reigning British monarch. Yeah. Which is so scary for a kid's show, that these kids were literally, like, when they get sent back to medieval times, they were on their way to being executed.
Yeah, he was going to chop their head off. They showed, like, them sharpening the axe and everything like that, and, like, they had the chopping block, and, like, you know, where the blood runs out of it and everything. And
yeah, this was definitely a two-parter. This was long. Like, the whole first one, they're in Terror Tower. Second one, they're kind of trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, they're back in the medieval times and everything. It's definitely super cool.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, there's something that it's cool, because I think this one was the only one they filmed in London. They went to...
They definitely did go to London, because they had the telephone booths, the buses, like, it looked
everybody
like London.
Was, like, talking, you know, all the extras were in British accent and everything like that, so that's cool. And I think this was, like, one of the last ones they ended up doing for the series.
Yeah, this came out in 95.
Oh, 95, so it's one of the first ones. Oh, wow.
Which this is definitely one of the best ones, for sure.
Yeah, that one, I definitely like that one a lot.
And right after this one, he wrote the Cuckoo Clock of Doom.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Interesting. So that's, like, part of the first season, then.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, very good. You picked a good one. So for my number one, I picked Welcome to Dead House. So this one is another two-parter, one and two parts. So basically it starts out with Amanda, who's the older sister, and Josh, who's the younger brother. They move to this town called Dark Falls. That's how the episode starts off. They're in the car. They're driving to this town called Dark Falls. And Josh is all mad about it. And he's like, I don't want to move, blah, blah, blah. And Amanda's kind of just like, whatever. Like, she doesn't want to. Yeah. She has no say in the matter. And so they finally get to their new house in Dark Falls. But as they're driving through, they're like, all these houses are like derelict, boarded up, you know,
it's
just
creepy.
in shambles, basically. And it's super creepy. And they, you know, so they get to the house, they start unloading some of their stuff, they're waiting for the moving van to get there and everything like that. And the realtor's at the house, but he's like upstairs hiding in the darkness. And the dog, they have a dog, golden retriever, that goes upstairs and is like, you know, barking at something. And the Amanda, she goes up and like, come on, Petey. I think the dog's name is Petey. Come on, Petey, you know, and then like all of a sudden, like she sees this guy just standing in the corner, gets instantly freaked out, and commercial break, of course. Come to find out, it's just the realtor, and you know, he's just got like some paperwork for them to sign, and there's something off with him.
Oh yeah,
like
everybody in this neighborhood.
Yeah, right off the start, there's something like off with him. So Amanda kind of like senses that, and so the next day comes, you know, the moving people are there. Their neighbor comes in, and she's like a bubbly, full of sun, or bubbling ray of sunshine. I mean, she's full, you know, of energy. She's like, oh my God, you know, here's some stuff for you. I baked you some stuff. But she's like super, super pale looking, and everybody that they come to meet in the town is very, very pale. And so they kind of like meet. The neighbor has a daughter, so her and Amanda kind of become friends again. The daughter is very, very pale, and so Amanda and Josh, they go for like a walk. They run into like the local neighborhood kids, and they're kind of like all very menacing. They kind of like circle them, and they're like looking at them, and they're like, "Hey guys, what's up?" You know, and they're like, "Oh, we just want to know if you guys want to play some baseball." And Josh was like, "Yeah, I play baseball." Yeah. And then the sun starts to come out, and they're like, "Oh wait, maybe not now." So you're right then, you kind of know something's like up with the people in Dark Falls, and so then nighttime comes. This part freaked me out. I always got scared at this part. So Amanda's sleeping in her room, and she sees this woman. Like, she thinks she's, like, her parents think she's dreaming, but she's not. She sees this woman, like, come out of her closet, and she's, like, this old, like, gaunt, like, witch-looking lady. And she's like, go away, run for your life, like, stuff like that. Like, basically warning her. And she, like, wakes, you know, she's screaming. Her parents come in. The woman's not there. There's a huge hole in the closet, in the wall in the closet, and the dad's like, oh, you probably just saw, like, a raccoon, like, some stupid excuse. Like, dreaming or something like that. And then, so he, like, boards it up. And then, the dog runs off at this point, the PD. So they follow the dog into the woods, Amanda and Josh, and they come to this old, like, abandoned cemetery. And come to find out, while they're there, they learn that the parents back home, they were talking to the realtor guy. They found this old newspaper. There was a chemical plant in the town. There was a huge like chemical spill in Dark Falls. That's why they got the house so cheap, and why there's not a lot of houses there anymore and everything. And like, you know, people are all weird. So they're like, what the hell? We didn't want to buy the house knowing that. You know, there's like all this chemical, like radiation everywhere. But while Josh and Amanda are at this cemetery in the middle of the woods, it's super creepy because there's no road leading to the cemetery. It's just in the middle of the woods. Yeah. All the townsfolk are there, and they're like talking about when they're going to get to feed next. And they kind of put two and two together, like, oh, they're talking about us, like eating us. So they see them and they like run away from them and everything like that. They get back to the house, and the parents are there with the neighbors. And the neighbors are like, oh my God, we thought this was over with, like, you know, playing it off and everything like that. And they have this wreath over the fireplace, and it's like a good luck charm that they hung up when they first got to the house.
I forgot about that.
And Amanda's telling the mom, it's like, I knew that, it's the wreath, like, you know, that's what they're saying, that's what her friend was saying and everything like that. And she's like, you got to get rid of that. And
the real estate agent.
Yeah, well, the neighbors, too, they were there with, they were like, yeah, you got to get rid of that thing. I had a bad feeling about it the first time, so they ended up burning it. And the neighbors, it's kind of corny. They're like, ha, 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 tricked you. You know, they're obviously part of the zombie horde, too. Yeah. And all these people are zombies, they come to find out, and they want to eat them.
Yep.
And that's basically, they chase them up to the attic, and all these zombies are in the house, and they're in the attic. They got them, like, cornered, and then, like, there's like a ray of sunlight coming up from one of the boarded attic windows, and the guy puts his hand in there, and it like burns him. So
cheesy.
Josh and Amanda start pulling off all the boards, and the dad and the mom and everything like that are pulling off the boards to all the windows, and then like everybody just starts melting, and then like the people that weren't able to make it upstairs, they're still like waiting outside for them. They all come running out with the dog and everything, or no, I'm sorry, they don't see the dog yet. They all come running, Josh and her parents and Amanda, they come all running downstairs, get in the car and drive away, and like the realtor and a few of the other zombies are still outside, and they're like, come back, Dark Falls needs you, come back.
So creepy.
It's super creepy. And then they're driving away, they're like, oh my god, we're so lucky we got out of there. They're driving away and everything, and then they see the dog on the side of the road, Petey, they pick him up, but Petey got turned into a zombie, and that's how it ends. Petey starts turning all gray like they were, and like very pale, and poor Petey got turned into one.
Speaking of golden retrievers, the intro for a Goosebumps episode is so iconic. Yeah. It's like probably R.L. Stein walking in like all black with a briefcase, and the papers start to spill out, and then like these like green eyes go to this golden retriever, and his eyes all light up.
Like and bark.
Yep, the music's like dun, 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 dun. It's so iconic. I love it.
Yeah, this one was definitely like scared me as a kid. That woman when she came into Amanda's room and she's just like warning her. I was so scared. Mm-hmm. I always thought there was like going to be a woman in my room and stuff like that. I always thought like the closet door closed and
which like I said before, like the werewolf of Fever Swamp is like preying on your fears of like moving somewhere new. You don't want to. Your parents are making you.
Yes.
And then you're like, see, I told you. I told you, shit's crazy.
Yeah, you didn't want to believe me. Yeah, same kind of premise with this one, but. Yeah, that's my final one there.
Okay, so for my number one, I picked The Haunted Mask, which this is definitely my favorite episode. I watch this all the time, yes. It's basically about Carly Beth. She's the main character. She does have a little brother, Noah, but he's not in it a ton. It's mostly about Carly Beth.
Yes.
And this girl is, like, scared of everything. Scared of spiders, scared of, like, worms, scared of, like, bugs, anything, really. She gets scared very easily.
Yeah.
And she has these bullies at school that just torture her relentlessly. And they're such dicks, man. They put worms in her sandwich.
Yeah, like, that's not even
so
cool. Mean. Like, that's
so
mean.
That's,
like, bad. That's, like, criminal behavior.
Yeah, I think that's illegal. I don't think you can make somebody eat a worm like that.
Yeah, I'm like, that's so gross. She, like, bit into it, too. It was nasty.
She
did.
Like, she bit into it, and then everybody started laughing at her. And she's 11. Like, how traumatizing.
I know.
And at one point, one of the boys like pinches her and tells her that a tarantula escaped, and they bit her.
Yeah,
because she's arachnophobia. Like, how sad.
I know, that is so sad.
So she comes home from this like really long day at school where everyone's mean to her, and she gets scared of everything easily. And her mom is like a seamstress, and she makes her a Halloween costume, and it's like a little baby duck.
Yeah.
And Carly Beth gets pissed.
Yeah, she was not happy.
She was not happy. She's like, I want to be scary this year. Everybody scares me all the time. I want to be scary.
Right.
So she takes what little money she has as an 11-year-old, and she finds this mask shop. They sell like different cool, spooky masks. And she's like, oh, I've never seen this shop before. And she goes inside, and there's like typical Halloween stuff. And then you go to the back room, and there's some scary looking masks, I would say.
Very scary.
Very scary.
Very, like, real looking, too.
Very real. And then this like, creepy man who's the shop owner comes out and is like, yeah, I'm not going to sell to you. And she's like, no, I need to be scary. I need a Halloween costume. And he basically refuses to sell to her. And she takes the mask off the little mannequin head and runs with it and takes it. Well, Halloween night comes around, and she puts, like, a black cloak on and this creepy-ass mask. And like all you can see is, like, her pupils, I would say. Like, everything is covered.
Yeah.
And one of her friends is like, dressed as a bumblebee.
Ladybug or bumblebee or something like that. Yeah.
And they meet up, and she's like, Carly Beth, it like looks so real. It like looks like it's breathing. It looks like it's actually your skin.
Yeah.
And Carly Beth is just living her best life. She's like, yeah, isn't it scary? Isn't it scary?
Yeah.
And her whole goal is to get revenge on her bullies, right?
Yeah.
So she kind of does this whole plan where she corners her bullies into the graveyard, and she scares them with this mask on. And it's accomplished. They get really scared. I think one of them pees his pants, which honestly deserved. And she starts laughing, and she's like, no, it's me, it's Carly Beth, and she tries to pull the mask off. and the mask won't come off.
Yeah.
And the mask has now stopped from the top of her neck, and it's gone down to her chest.
Yeah,
and
it's like in her skin.
It's in her skin, and she can't find where the mask ends and where her skin starts.
Yeah.
So basically the mask is becoming her, and she's like, no, this isn't right. I took it off earlier. The thing was right here. Like, I took it off.
Yeah.
And she can't get it off. She starts, like, scrubbing it with, like, a wipe or something, and nothing's coming off. This mask has basically become her.
Yeah.
And you can see, too, the way it's fitted is...
It's, like, form-fitted to her face.
Yeah. And it does. It looks like when she breathes, the mask breathes.
Yes.
And she starts to act kind of evil, I would say, with this mask on. Like, she takes on the persona of, like, a demon or whatever this mask is.
It's like a bad...
Just a bad person, yeah. She takes on the persona of that and starts to be mean and, like, making fun of everybody. Kind of treating other people how she's been treated.
Yes.
Well, when she finds out she can't take this mask off, she runs back to that shop that's, like, no longer there anymore. But the shop owner, she finds him, and he's like, you should have never put that mask on. Like, those masks are alive. And she's like, what do you mean they're alive?
Yeah. He's like, bombshell. Sorry, I forgot to tell you that before you stole it.
And she's like, no, I'll do anything to take it off. And he's, like, running away from her, trying to leave and be like, you know, leave town at this point.
Yeah.
And he tells her that it can be removed by a symbol of love.
Mm-hmm.
Well, her mom had made, like, this glass...
It's like a bust of Carly's head.
Yeah, this, like, glass figure of Carly Beth's head, and she basically kind of talks to it, and is like, I love you, whatever. She shows some self-love, the mask comes off, and at the end, everything's fine, they get back to their house, and then her brother Noah busts through her bedroom door and says, how do you like my mask? And he's wearing the mask.
Yeah.
And that's how the episode ends.
It's like that. He's got it on, and it's, like, form-fitted to his face.
It's form-fitted to him, so now it's become him, and she's just like, ah, and she screams.
Yes.
But this was another one that was a two-parter.
Yes. Well, there was actually a 4-part one, because there was the Haunted Mask, too.
They made another 2-part about it, too.
Yeah.
Which I guess, this came from R.L. Stein's son. I guess when he was younger, he had a Frankenstein mask on that he had trouble getting off during Halloween night.
Oh, wow.
And R.L. Stein just kind of had the idea, and I guess...
What if he couldn't take the mask off?
Mm-hmm. I guess R.L. Stein, same thing happened to him. He was like, I want to be scary, and his parents got him a duck costume for Halloween.
Oh, that's awesome.
And he's like, no, I want to be scary.
That's funny.
But yeah, what a scary concept. Like, when you're little...
That would be terrifying, yeah.
When you're little, you want to be scary. You go to the store, you pick out the scariest mask or whatever, and then just for it to become you and not come off is terrifying.
Oh, God, yeah. That would be terrifying.
I can't even imagine. And I think that's definitely one of the most creative episodes and the most effective. I watch that episode all the time.
Yeah, I definitely love that episode.
And then there's a part, too, where all the masks that were in that room start to kind of float towards her.
Yeah.
And it's pretty good effects, I would say, but they're like just these floating heads floating towards her.
Yeah, they're like coming for her, basically.
They're coming for her because she's like a part of them now, and they're like, Carly Beth.
Yeah, Carly Beth, we need you, Carly Beth.
Yeah. And she's trying to run away. She's like, no, please. And she's like this sweet, innocent little girl who gets scared of everything.
I know. I felt bad for her, too.
I felt terrible for her. Like, I see that you want to get revenge. I mean, worms in the sandwich? That's not cool.
Terrible. Very terrible.
Not cool. But yeah, I love the Haunted Mask. I love all these episodes. I really love every Goosebumps episode. I think they're all great, honestly.
I know. I just like putting it on and letting it play, even if I'm not watching it. You know, I'll hear something and be like, oh, I remember that one, and I'll come running in and be like, oh, yeah.
It's good background noise for sure, but it's definitely iconic in the horror community.
Yes, I think this definitely shapes a lot of young people into
I agree.
liking the strange and unknown. You know?
Yes, yeah, I know. I want to go back now and see if we can find some of the books. I'd love to reread some of the stories.
I know. We did find there was a bookstore back home that we found. She had a few, like a used bookstore, and she had a few of them, but not nearly as many as I used to have.
Yeah.
No, I had a whole collection of them, man. I maybe had like 30 of them.
I know. I never kept them. I just checked them out from the library and brought them back. But looking back, I should have just stolen them.
Yeah, just stolen them. I know. You can probably find them on 8 Books. There's always 8 Books.
But anyways, that is this week's episode. And until next week.
Stay spooky, guys.
Stay spooky.